Yes.
Yeah.
So you all ready to roll?
We're ready.
All
Real
right,
good.
let's light this candle. Welcome to the smartest people in the room. We are so glad you are here with us, and just by showing up, you are already demonstrating your very own smarts. Today, I am pleased to feature two incredibly talented and well-spoken musicians and artist advocates. One of these is one of my longtime friends, and the other I have simply admired from afar for quite some time. I am so pleased to bring them together for what I am sure will be awesome. And I promise you will leave today a lot smarter and more inspired than you arrived. Before we get started, please let me take care of some business. First, to the audience, please feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat window. The reason we do these webinars is twofold. First, we want to showcase really smart people and the amazing work they do day to day in the industry. But the second reason is a bit more nuanced. Many of you know that I am a music industry headhunter. I run the music practice at Turnkey ZRG, and I place music executives in roles throughout the industry. So by definition and function, I help people connect with companies. In this series, my goal is to help you make more connections, and I invite you to take full advantage of that opportunity. Specifically, I invite you to engage with the speakers and the other attendees in the chat of the Zoom. Please introduce yourselves, share your LinkedIn profile, say hello to your friends, and please make some new ones. And ask questions of our speakers. We will try to address as many of those as possible during the session. Also, please make sure your chat is set to address everyone, not just the host and the speakers. I want to thank our program sponsors, for without their support, we could not keep this free. Thank you to First Horizon Bank, Turnkey ZRG, the Tennessee Entertainment Commission, Tennessee Brew Works, Project Music, and Cushmaster's brand of CBD products. I also want to introduce a brand new sponsor to our lineup, and that's MedJet. MedJet is the top-rated medical transport and travel security program for people who travel extensively. Insurance will only medvac you to the closest hospital. MedJet gets you to a hospital at home. So let's get down to business. In today's host seat, we welcome my good friend, Charles Alexander. Charles is co-founder and CEO of Launcher, a record label and label services company that specializes in streaming, marketing, and strategy. He also owns and runs Outside the Box Music, an artist management and digital services company. He was responsible for Keely Valentino generating over 12 million streams on Spotify in 1 year from her song Nashville, the truly first independent artist on the platform to do so. Charles has worked with artists as diverse as Ryan Cabrera, Keb Mo, Gabe Dixon, and Jackie Vincent. He helps artists, musicians, and songwriters create and extend their online presence, especially on digital music services and TikTok. He also helps implement strategies and campaigns to increase fan acquisition, fan engagement, and brand awareness. He established Rock the Net, the first of its kind digital music education initiative geared towards educating music industry professionals on how to leverage the internet. He frequently writes about the future of music marketing and technology trends. He's also an in-demand speaker at events such as South by Southwest, Music Biz, Americana Music Association, and Folk Alliance International. And one more fun fact about Charles. When I launched the live event series called Who Knew, which predated this webinar series, Charles was one of the very first executives I featured. He's been a badass that long and continues to impress me every time I hear him speak. Welcome, my friend. So glad to have you.
It's great to be here, Tom. What a lovely introduction.
Thank you.
And joining Charles as today's special guest is Reecey Palmer. Reecey's gift lies in reaching across all musical boundaries. While she's made her mark in country music, she's equally at home in R&B music, bringing the entire spectrum of popular music to bear on music she calls Southern Soul. The daughter of Georgia natives, Rissi was born near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and spent her adolescent years in St. Louis. Raised a musical family that loved both country and R&B, Rissi was part of a singing and dancing troupe sponsored by local television stage at age 16, and by the time she was 19, she had already been offered her first publishing and label deal. In 2007, she released her debut album, Reecey Palmer, charting singles Country Girl and Hold On To Me, No Air, and since then she has independently released a Christmas single, her first children's album, Best Day Ever, and an EP entitled The Back Porch Sessions. Her most recent album, Revival, was released in 2019, and she's been critically hailed as her most personal and uplifting work to date. A few highlights throughout her musical career include performances at the White House. Wow, go sister. New York's Lincoln Center, and multiple appearances on the Grand Ole Opry. She's toured extensively across the country, sharing stages with Taylor Swift, the Eagles, Chris Young, Charlie Crockett, and many others. Reecey has also made numerous national appearances on Oprah and Friends, CMT Insider, CNN, CBS This Morning, GMA, Entertainment Tonight, and Fox's Soul, The Book of Sean, and has been featured in Associated Press, Ebony, Essence, Huffington Post, New York Times, Newsweek, NPR's All Things Considered, People, Rolling Stone, The Wall Street Journal, and Washington Post, just to name a few. As a passionate voice for country artists of color and those who have been marginalized in mainstream country music, Reecey launched her own radio show called Color Me Country with Reecey Palmer on Apple Music Country. Since making its debut in August 2020, listeners have been treated to in-depth and riveting, often funny yet very necessary conversations with Brittany Spencer, Chapel Hart, Crystal Shawanda, Miko Marks, The War and Treaty, Darius Rucker, and Mickey Guyton. In February, she hosted a virtual roundtable discussion with country stars Maren Morris, Cam, and author-journalist Andrea Williams about racism in country music and how everyone from fans to artists themselves have a duty to work toward equality within the genre. In conjunction with the radio show, Reecey created Color Me Country Artist Grant Fund, designed to support new country artists of color who are just beginning to build their musical careers. She most recently became special correspondent for CMT's Hot Country 20 Countdown. Gosh, what an incredible legacy she's already built. Welcome to the program, Reecey and Charles. Please take it away, Charles.
Man, I feel like I'm already exhausted and ready to pass out just from those introductions. So that was so kind, Tom.
Thank you, Tom.
That was so nice. So I see a lot of friends in the chat, and I should point out that my co-founder and business partner, Jeremy Brook, is in the room, and without him, this new venture wouldn't be possible. So I'm grateful for him. And I should announce that if, this, I just learned about it this morning, but Reecey is part of the Grammy, The Power of Women in Country Music exhibit that was just announced today. And right there next to Dolly Parton.
Thank God for alphabetical order.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say. Like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And
I benefit from alphabetical order.
Let me just tell you, having the last name starting with the letter A is a good thing too, So yeah. Right. So, and I just think that's just the next in a series of, well-deserved accolades. And people should know that we've known each other for a while. And thanks to our dear friend, Deanna Walker,
yes,
who is the fairy godmother of songwriters everywhere in this town.
Yes, home for wayward songwriters. Yes.
That's right, the patron saint of wayward songwriters.
Yes.
And so that's how we first met all those years ago. And what an incredible, it's been fun to watch your journey.
It has not been fun having my journey, but I'm glad it's been fun for you to watch it.
Well, anything that's worth, I don't know, I kind of feel like all the accolades and the success you're having now comes from kind of the hustle and the struggle from way back then.
Yeah.
That you appreciate it more,
Yeah, no, you have to feel all the things.
Yeah.
Like that's the lesson that I'm learning from all of this, is that you just have to, like, that's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I want to start at the beginning. You were born. And so
I was.
Yeah, so we hear. And then from that point onwards, kind of maybe briefly discuss like how you got to wanting to do music, So
Sure. I think that, well, first of all, like we're going to fix that part in my bio because I do not come from a musical family. I come from a family nobody else except for my grandmother and my cousin T are the only people that sing.
okay.
Otherwise, it is a family that should not sing something. But no, I come from people that love music and have a huge appreciation for music. And so for as long as I can remember, Charles, I have sung and wanted to sing and wanted to hear music and wanted to just kind of just I was one of those weird kids that like when I would come home from school, the sneaky thing that I did was play my parents' records because we
Yeah.
weren't supposed to touch the records. And so I would listen to records and do my homework and then just lay and daydream until someone came home from work. And that was my, like that was my sneaky thing that I did.
How old were you?
Um, I remember reading in my baby book, my mom put in my baby book when I was like 2 for like my 2-year-old checkup. The doctor said that I sing constantly. So I guess it's just always been there, but like literally for as long as I can remember, I never told anyone I wanted to do anything but music. So it's always been my thing.
Yeah, yeah. And was so at 2, you weren't in St. Louis yet, correct?
No, we were I was born in Swickley, Pennsylvania, which is right outside of Pittsburgh.
Yeah,
And we lived in Moon Township, which is across the bridge, until I was 12, and then we moved to St. Louis.
yeah. What initiated the move to St. Louis?
My father was a general manager for different department stores. And so typically he was good at his job. And so good that whenever anybody was failing, they would send my dad. And so we moved quite a bit when I was a kid,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
like they would only be for like short periods of time. Like we spent some time in Columbus, but that was only for like 4 months. And they went to Cincinnati for a few years, and St. Louis was just one of the spots that they sent my dad.
Yeah. So he's like a touring musician, basically.
Kinda, a little bit. I mean, like, it's so funny. You realize all these parallels to
Yeah,
like things that happen in your childhood that kind of
yeah,
prepare you for what your adulthood is going to be like.
yeah.
And that was definitely one of them. Like it's never been weird to me to move around a lot or to like live out of a suitcase or live out of a box because that was what my childhood was like.
Yeah, yeah. So then from that point onwards, high school and all that stuff, when did you kind of figure out, okay, I'm gonna go do this and do this?
So that happened actually right before I graduated high school. It happened my senior year. I met my very first managers. They were 2 women by the name of Leslie and Dana, and they had a company called Us Girls Entertainment. And I used to sing in high school. I was in all the plays. I did the talent shows, like all that stuff. It was obnoxious. And so I was I was in the group that Tom mentioned in my bio, called Team 11, and we were sponsored by a local television station in St. Louis. And so everybody knew that that's what I did.
Yeah,
And so Leslie and Dana asked their younger brother, Leslie's younger brother, if he knew of anyone that would be a good artist. And they were like, oh, Reecey. So 17, they come over to my house and sit down with us and basically lay out a plan to get me a record deal. And this all sounded great to
they had a
me.
plan.
Yeah, they had a plan. Now, did that plan work? Oh no. But no.
Just having a
Uh,
plan. Yeah,
but they had a plan.
yeah,
And so I was planning on going to school. I had already applied and been accepted to DePaul University in Chicago. And that's where I was headed. And they were just like, well, give us the summer to get a demo going for her. And then we'll see what happens next year. So I did this demo over the summer and it was a pop demo.
mhm,
And then one night when we were in a hotel, I started singing, and I was writing in my little notebook, and they're like, "What are you writing?" And so I played them one of my songs, and they were like, "Reecey, this is a country song." And I said, "I know, I love country." I said, "I actually wrote this for Reba McEntire." It's a terrible song, but um, they were just like, "That's your thing. Like, why didn't you tell us that you love that?" And I was just like, "Well, I didn't know. I didn't know that that was something that I could do, that we could do." And so that was when so that was a long way of answering your question, that I decided I knew I wanted to, I just needed to get out of St. Louis,
Yeah,
I thought.
sure.
And so Chicago was at first that thing, and I was like, well, it's a major city, so I'll get a gig and I'll start. I had no clue how to even get started. And then Leslie and Dana came into my life, and then that totally changed the trajectory of everything.
Yeah. And then from that point, was it Nashville, or did you guys look at LA, or?
So we made a pit stop in Atlanta. They had just got a house in Atlanta, and so I left college right before my freshman year, um, and ended, and started going, like, so I did a demo in Atlanta with a country songwriter producer that was based there. And then we started shopping it to people in Nashville. And it just so happened, through like 6 degrees of separation, the dude that did their website knew an attorney in Nashville who had a publishing company.
Of course,
And
yeah.
so, right. And so they sent my demo to him. He in turn sent it to the publishers. The publishers were interested, and that was kind of our first no, and then the publisher introduced me to Deborah Allen. That's what it was. It truly
Okay.
was like 6 degrees of
Yeah,
separation.
yeah,
And so
yeah.
Deborah Allen is who did my first demo.
Okay, cool. And then, so did you get signed to a pub deal first, which is how it normally works here, or did you get signed to a label situation first, or?
So I was offered a demo deal, which
Okay.
is like artist protection,
Yeah,
because
yeah.
you never come
Witness
out. And
protection.
so like no one will ever know who you are.
Yeah.
And I ended up not taking that deal. And in the following year, I was offered my first publishing deal
Yeah. Okay, cool.
at Song Planet.
Okay. And so at that point, how many years was it from the moment, like, so you graduated high school. So was that 3 years?
No, actually that all happened. So I was 17 when I graduated.
Right.
I turned 18 at the beginning of my freshman year. I left, and by that June, still 18, I did the demo with June of 2000. I did the demo with Deborah Allen. That whole summer we shopped it, and I got offered the deal, and then nothing happened. And then a year later, when I turned 19, 19 about to be 20, that was when I got offered the publishing deal.
Okay, cool. And then from that point
And then
onwards,
nothing happened after.
welcome to the Nashville story.
Yeah. Yeah, and then I was an overnight success of 7 years. Like, it
Okay.
really went like that, because I after that initial buzz and excitement, and then oh my God, what do we do with her? Like, how do we find
Right.
songs for her, and that kind of thing. I wasn't offered another deal in Nashville again.
Yeah.
And so in between then, like, Terry Lewis and Jimmy Jam offered me a deal
Yeah.
when I was 19, and I ended up not taking that because of because it was a pop deal and I didn't want to do pop.
Yeah.
And met Prince and did some stuff with him, and
How was that?
it was incredible. It was
Yeah.
one of the highlights of my life. Like, I will die very satisfied because I got to do that. We had the same attorney.
Okay.
And so I moved after Atlanta. I moved to New York for like 4 years.
Yeah.
And was working a regular job, singing jingles at night, doing gigs and all that, and still going to Nashville. I would go to Nashville every 2 weeks out of every month and write. And they invited me, my attorney invited me to perform at his Christmas party. Yes, Nikki, I met him. And And I performed at this Christmas party, and he came, and um he was like, they took me into like this little room, like this little boardroom, and there were all these Secret Service guys, and they're all like, Prince is coming, Prince is coming. And I was like, okay, what's happening? And he walks in, and I mean, very Prince like beautiful and amazing and all that. And he's just like, why don't you play me something? And he said it like straight faced and all that. And I was like, ah. And so then I started playing, and he goes, that's nice. You got anything else? And so then I start playing something else. And then he goes, may I? And then he takes my guitar and plays like a very amazing Prince riff. And then he was like, we'll be in touch. And then he walked out. And so I was like, was that good? And my attorney was like, that was very good. And I was like, okay, great. And so then I didn't hear from him for like 3 months. And this is around the time of musicology. And basically he wanted to see what kind of artist I was, who I was. And so this started, he would call, and his assistant would call, and then he would get on the phone, and we would talk songs, and he would ask me what I was writing, and I would send him what I was writing, and he'd send me back notes
That's
and
crazy.
ideas and things like that. Yeah. And I got to go to his, so everybody knows about Paisley Park in Minnesota, but he had a place in California for a long time, in Beverly Hills. And he invited me there. And I remember I came in, I had a friend with me. He flew me out from New York to California, to Los Angeles, and put me up in a hotel. I had a car. I had no idea when he was going to call for me. So I was just hanging out at this hotel, like terrified that I was going to miss the call. And so I had a friend. We went to this house. I walk in, and they're partying, and like, and they're showing Cabaret on the ceiling, because why not?
Why not?
And
Yeah.
like the Black Eyed Peas are laying on the floor watching
This is
with
the Black
Justin
Eyed Peas,
Timberlake.
the band,
Yes,
not
the
the Black
band,
Eyed.
not
Yeah.
actual Black Eyed Peas. And and with Justin Timberlake, and like Tavis Smiley and Dustin Hoffman are playing pool. And there's like a bossa nova band like playing in the middle of his living room. Like, it was the most far out. And anyway, he introduced me to everybody, and he was just very kind and awesome. And this particular night, they were playing 80s music, and the DJ's playing these 80s songs, and all of a sudden Michael Jackson comes on. So I look at my friend, and I'm like, oh my God, we're dancing to Michael Jackson. And
In Prince's
like, this is
party.
crazy. And so then Prince comes twirling. He twirls over, and he stops in front of me, and he goes, I didn't know country girls danced. And then he spun away. And like, it was that kind of stuff all the time. And so this went on for about 3 years.
Yeah.
And I got to see musicology, the tour, like 4 or 5 times, because he would fly me out and do that. And we would talk and just vibe. And he was awesome. And he was a really funny person. And I think that when I got ready to sign my deal, his whole thing was, I don't think you need to give away your masters. Like, you don't need to sign a deal. But I wanted to sign a deal so bad, because
Right.
that's the validation that every artist wants.
Sure.
And so I signed the deal, and that kind of was the end of our relationship, which sucks. And I never got to see him after that.
Yeah.
And I got messages like that he'd seen some of the things that I'd done, and he was proud of me and kind of thing, but like, we never talked again. And then he passed, and so I never got to say thank you. But yeah,
Yeah.
he was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, he's the artist, right? I mean, like, if there was ever sort of the definition of the artist, yeah, there's a guy who was fully immersed in the whole thing.
Completely.
Yeah.
Completely.
Yeah. Yeah. So then you had this deal with
Mhm.
the deal that you signed, which
Mhm.
was what worked in that situation and what didn't work in that situation. And I asked this knowing the answer.
We don't have time. No. No, I will say this. Um, I'm now 13 years past that deal, and so I can honestly say that I would not be sitting here talking to you today had I not signed that deal.
Yeah.
Now, could we have negotiated that deal better? Probably. And so I take full responsibility for that part
Yeah.
because just because you're presented with a piece of paper does not mean you have to sign it.
Sure.
And it the things that okay, so 1720 did several things right. I think we got the music right. I think that they let me, at least on that first project, dictate a lot of what I wanted.
Sure.
And like I was a brand new artist and I wrote 12 of the 13 songs on that album.
Yeah. That's unheard
So
of. Yeah.
yeah, that's unheard of.
Yeah. Back
And
then.
so yeah, back then people weren't doing that. And
Yeah.
so especially not in Nashville. So that was huge and they let me do that. And I think because they weren't like the typical Nashville record label, we were able to do a lot of those things that people didn't do in 2007, 2008. Um, I think the launch of Country Girl was right.
Yeah.
Um, I think that the money that they put behind making those songs happen and pushing it, I think that that was another thing that was incredibly unheard of. I mean, we did a year and a half radio tour for Country Girl.
Hmm.
And like people don't do that. Major labels don't do that. Like if you don't make it up to a certain point, they cut it off.
Yeah.
But
For a
1720
debut
believed
record, especially, for a new
right or
record, new
send a new
artist.
record out.
Yeah.
So you don't hear those stories a lot. They still happen, but you don't hear them a lot. And it's mostly from indies that
Yeah. Yeah.
happens.
Right.
Um and I think that the people that he hired were great.
Yeah.
There were some really great names that have gone on to do really fantastic things in the music business since then. So Terry had really good, and really it was Derek Simon. Derek Simon helped to do a lot of the hiring in Nashville. And
Yeah.
so we had an all-star radio team. We had great marketing people. We had amazing PR. Like I mean, he spared no expense. And so yeah, all of those things made all the things that I'm doing now possible.
Sure.
So I'm very thankful in that regard. What he didn't do well is they spent money like water. And so like it just was like it's just it was money was just going out like crazy and it wasn't sustainable. And like he signed too many people
Yeah.
at one time and tried to launch in like hip hop, country, pop, all over the place, like reggae, and like it was too much for a little record company based out of Atlanta.
Yeah.
And he made some greedy business decisions that affected all of us.
Yeah.
And I'm still having to deal with the repercussions of some of those decisions
Sure. Yeah.
legally.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so in that way it was negative. But yeah, that's
Yeah.
yeah.
It's tough. I think when you're a new artist, you don't know what you don't know, right?
Yeah.
So, and if your team is relatively young, they don't know what they don't know.
Yeah.
And so it's a learning curve. Unfortunately, in the middle of that learning curve, you're having to make all these decisions that are going to affect you for the rest of your life,
Rest of your
possibly.
life.
And
Yeah.
if it's a good situation, then great, you're set up for the rest of your life. If it's not such a great situation, then
It's
you're
not
kind
good.
of in this sort of never land or
Yeah.
limbo. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm 40 years old now and I'm still having to um deal with the fallout of things that I decided when I was 26.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I think, like I said, whatever happened then and there, and then you're here now.
Yes.
And in between, we had Brian. And
Yes.
I don't know if he's listening in, but if he is, hi,
He's
Brian.
not. He's
Um,
working. I think he's gonna call himself. So yeah.
and then you guys kind of got up and moved to North Carolina.
Yeah, he's the reason I'm in North Carolina. And if he never does anything else for me after that, like that was probably one of the best things he ever did.
Yeah.
I needed to get out of the machine
Yeah.
and like fully get out of the machine. And I needed to heal and I needed to rest and regroup and rethink who I was, who I am. And you know, it was a good thing. I at the time I was just like, just get me the hell up out of here. But I
Right.
really
I,
but
I remember.
yeah. Oh yeah, no, it
Yeah.
was that was around the time I met you. Yes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. You were like catching the bus out of town around that time, as I
Oh my
recall.
God. I was like, I got to get out of here.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was a good move. And I've again, none of the things that I'm doing now would be possible if I hadn't made that move.
Okay. So fast forward a little bit to, obviously I think I met you around the time of backport sessions, probably again, and then
Mm-hmm.
all that stuff. Again, an amazing record. Um,
Thank you.
and I'm not just saying that because all my friends were involved in it, but but
Sure.
yes, I love, some great
Rick and
songs in that
D.
record,
Yeah.
you know. Um, so walk us through that process being in North Carolina and then you decided to regroup and reinvent, and somehow what you were doing caught the attention of Apple Music to where, to your present stage kind of situation.
So I'm gonna go back just a little bit.
Yeah.
So I moved here. I moved to North Carolina and got married in 2010. And shortly after that, in 2011, I had my daughter Grace. And I was pretty much up until that point retired. It took me a year to get out of my deal with 1720, and I had to file bankruptcy in order to get out of that deal.
Wow.
And so there was a lot of pain, a lot of because there was a lot of stuff that went on behind the scenes. It wasn't just business; it was also very personal
Mm,
and very painful. And so just dealing with the rejection that I felt from the industry at large, in addition to all the stuff that went on at the record label, I wanted nothing to do with it. And so coming to North Carolina was good, like, because I could focus on my baby, I could focus on my husband and my home and all that, and it was refreshing.
yeah.
And so I decided after Grace was born that I wanted to make music again. And so I started writing the children's album with Rick and Deanna and Blue Miller.
Yeah.
And we did that. And that was just like, just get your toes wet. And I was like, let's just see what happens. Had such a good time doing that that I decided I think I'm ready. I think I'm ready to get back out there. And so then that's when the back port sessions happened. And we started, I rehired Shotzi Hageman, who had been my PR when I was with 1720, and she's still my
Nice.
PR to this day. Love her.
Amazing.
And just I re-engaged a lot of people that I used to work with, and I'm just like, okay, well, you guys want to help me do a second run, and we made a little noise, and we did the things and all that, and then um did a Christmas project, and then I did Revival. And so like I've never stopped. Like I never stopped working. It wasn't in the quote unquote mainstream, but I never stopped. Like I still
Right.
played, we still toured, and I just had to figure out innovative ways to get myself out there because I wasn't dropping $1 million for radio.
Right.
And
Right.
so how else can we make these things happen? And you and I, had many conversations about streaming and how to make streaming happen, and how do you do that? And so it took a long time of just like figuring out how to do this on your own. Um and I always spoke out. Like I'm very outspoken. If you follow me on social media, like
No,
I don't
really?
hold back.
Oh, yeah. It's
I
hard to
don't
get
hold back
along.
how I feel, for better or for worse.
Yeah.
And And like it didn't just happen to me in 2020. Like I've been talking this way for a
Right.
long time. And it just so happened that people just started paying attention again.
Yeah.
And 2020 happened, and suddenly we're in quarantine, and I had this idea to do a show about people like me, because I kept seeing the narrative that there were only five black people, and that's it.
In the
Ever.
entire country, 5 black people making music. That's it.
Five that
Yes.
wanted to do country music. I'm like, that's not true. And I just wanted to fix the narrative. I wanted to correct the narrative. And so I found myself with all this time, and Color Me Country was born. And so I started interviewing people and working on it. I was going to release it myself. And another friend through the internet that I just met, even though we've been doing all these things together, is Kelly McCartney. And Kelly, I did an interview for her NPR podcast and told her about the idea that I had. And she was just like, oh, interesting. I may know some people.
Yeah.
Little did I know that Kelly was also a Apple Music country
Music.
host
Yeah.
in waiting. They hadn't made the announcement yet. And so that was like a Sunday. I had an email with the non-disclosure from Apple, and then I had the meeting Thursday, and I had a contract in my hand that next Monday. And they
Crazy.
didn't hesitate. They were excited about it, and they were very intentional about the type of roster that they were trying to create at Apple Music Country, and they wanted it to be equal. They wanted black people to be people of color to be represented. They wanted LGBTQ plus people to be represented, women. Like they just wanted it to be an even playing field, and so they were very intentional with who they signed.
Right.
And we started working on what is now Color Me Country Radio in June of 2020, and it aired for the first time in August.
It's fabulous. I mean, it is
Thank
so
you.
good. I mean, I haven't listened to everything, but I've listened to at least, I don't know, like 10, 12 episodes. I have to say my
That's a lot.
favorite.
That's more than I listen to sometimes. That's good.
Well, it's compelling. It's so compelling. I mean, how can you not want to be immersed in that and have conversations? And I have no idea what your audience metrics are, whatever, but the fact that these conversations happen in a platform that's a mainstream platform is really important, I think, for people like us. And my favorite episode, I think, is the Jason Isbell and Elamine episode, you know, the where you guys talked about all, Jason supporting what he was doing on the tour, and then a journalist talking about, and that one especially resonated because he's not from here and it's part of his
Hmm.
experience. Um, so no, I love that episode. I just love the work in
Thank you.
general. Yeah, yeah,
Thank you.
yeah,
It's that was one of my favorite episodes to do. And Jason, it was, I just know him from Twitter. And I just on an off chance I slid into his DMs, and I was like, Jason, you want to be on the show? I was like, I saw you cussing out some people today. I really appreciate that. Like, do you want to
yeah,
be on the show? And he said, yeah. And Elamine, same thing. I've been a fan of Elamine's writing for a long time. And so I
yeah,
just hit him up
yeah,
and asked him, did he want to be on? I'm still shocked sometimes when people are like, oh my God, I want to be. Really?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a good segue here. But I mean, folks, if you're not following Jason Isbell on Twitter, you
Oof,
are missing out.
you are
You know,
missing out.
that is an
It is.
incredible entertainment channel right there. Um, the man is eloquent for sure, but he is deft and skillful with
Oh, yes.
words. Yeah, yeah.
Oh, yes. He
Um,
Petty
was
LaBelle.
that?
I said he is Petty LaBelle, and I'm here.
Yeah, yeah, man. Yeah. Um, Yeah, I think that's a good segue to talk about all the things that, a lot of the things that Color Me Country talks about, which is, for me anyway, from the specific perspective of the future of country music and what country music is right now, and that evolution and the sort of the different things that are going on, like the stuff that Holly G is doing with Black
Mm-hmm.
Opry, and how CMT is involved with M Theory and all of our friends there, like Leslie and Cameo.
Mm-hmm.
Um, for me, I kind of feel like all those initiatives, you can draw a direct line from those initiatives to you. I kind of feel like you've sort of been the fairy godmother of country music for this whole different, for all of us who are sort of BIPOC, and
Mm-hmm.
that this wasn't and certainly there have been other sort of events around this that have sort of been instigators or sparks
Mm-hmm.
or bombs that have gone off that have sort of moved this conversation into the mainstream, but s- sparks don't always turn into fires, and I think you've been instrumental in sort of fanning the flames of some of this stuff, and I mean that in a positive way.
Thank you.
And so where do you see, first of all, where do you think things are now compared to 2 years ago? And then where do you kind of feel things are going, and what encourages you, and where do you think we still need some work? I know those are big
Well,
questions.
that's a great question. And first of all, thank you. That's I'm honored and very humbled by what you just said. Thank you. If I played a role in any of this stuff happening, I'm very, very happy. I don't know. I think that okay, so where are we now in comparison to where we were 2 years ago? We'll start there. I think that yes, I think that things are I think that it's a thing. Like there are things happening, and I see a lot of positive things happening, and unfortunately I see them from a lot of the same sources. Like Leslie Fram is doing a lot of heavy lifting
Yeah,
for the industry.
yeah,
And people like Cameo are involved in so many different things
yeah,
that that she's able to kind of hit from a lot of different angles. I think that the focus has been very much on artists, and I feel like now it's time for us to pull back, and we need to focus on the executives
yeah.
and who's running these companies, who's on the boards,
Mm-hmm,
who's the manager,
mm-hmm.
who is the engineer in the studio, who's the producer, who's the songwriter, who's running the camera. Like, it's not enough to parade um 10 in addition to the 5, but
Yeah.
10 people
Right.
of color out, every award ceremony or every performance special or Christmas special or whatever. Like, it has to be, in order for change to be long lasting, it has to come from the people that are making the decisions.
1000%.
And yeah, and who's in the boardrooms. And so I try to model that in my hiring practices. Like, I'm trying to bring everybody that I can who never thought that they could into the party.
Yeah.
And that's like makeup artists. My band. I have an all black band that is doing, like, that's going to be playing with me on some very traditional country and white stages in the next few months, and I'm very excited about that.
Yeah.
And none of these guys are Nashville guys. These are all people from North Carolina and from Durham. And but I think that that's important. I think that we have to, artists, now that you have a moment, think about your hiring practices and who you
Mm-hmm.
bring in. Who is your photographer? Who is your makeup artist? Because, like, today, I got a phone call about the girl that did my makeup for the CMT Awards to do someone for an event that's happening, like a very big deal event that's happening at the Country Music Hall of Fame. And this is someone who was just doing weddings and stuff like that. But, like, all it was telling me how much they wanted to be a part of the industry. So I'm like, all right, girl, well, here you go. And so it's those types of things. Like, you have to be able to, yes, and there aren't enough women in
Yeah.
leadership roles. And then, like, women of color, like, you can count them. Gina Miller.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, and Candace Watkins. And so I shouldn't be able to just name. It's not enough to be able to name your black friends or
Yes.
like your Indian friends or your whoever. And so I try to model what I think the industry should look like.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the job. That's now what we have to do going forward is it has to permeate every level.
Yeah. So I don't mean to put you in the spot, but I'm going to put you in the spot. So let's just say someone at a label, like a major label, country, the country side of that label, said, Reecey Palmer, we want to hire you to be the CEO of this label. Well, I know you're going to run, but let's just assume
Screaming.
and screaming. That's right. But, there could be a role for you to come in there and change some things because, like you said, some of the decisions you made back when you were basically a baby in this industry has had long-lasting repercussions. But putting that aside, what would you want to see happen, like in the first week, the first month? Not even like thinking a year out, but some easy things or some sort of straightforward things you would change inside the structure of those businesses.
Well, I'm going to answer your question, Marina. I'm going to acknowledge your statement because 100% I think that taking music out of schools has
Yeah.
killed a lot of things. But I think that, when you're aware that there are people like you doing things that you've never seen people like you do, it changes the way you think.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I 100% think that needs to happen,
Yep.
like in a major way. And that's actually something that I've been thinking about doing with Color Me Country Foundation. Okay, now to answer your question, Charles, if I were to be hit on my head and take a job at a record label in Nashville, I think the first thing that I would do is I would sit down, I would ask all of my staff to come in and I would like to see who's in there. And I would try to identify some of the blind spots that we have because if everybody's sitting around, it's true for everything. If the board was all Indian, if the board was all black, if it
Yep.
was all women, like there need to be other perspectives in the room in order to make sure that you don't have blind spots. I have blind spots. And I'm very fortunate that I have people around me that point them out to me whenever I'm making decisions or whenever I'm doing things so
Yeah.
that I'm not being hypocritical. Because it's one thing for me to sit here, hire more people of color. But like, what about all these other people? What about people that are in different different, I don't want to say this the wrong way, different abilities
Yeah.
and and that sort of thing. And so I want to make sure that I would want to make sure that we covered and not just running out and hiring the first different person on, just because of what they look like, what the outward appearance is like, but there are qualified people that just want a chance.
Yeah.
That just want to be involved. And so going out and finding those people, which is not a hard thing to do if you're intentional. And I would make sure that my record label reflects the type of roster that I want to have.
Yeah.
Then my other thing is I would throw out owning your masters.
Yeah.
I think that that's antiquated. I think that that's the old way of doing things. And I think that you get a lot more happiness, a lot more productivity, and a lot more art
Yeah.
if we stopped taking people's art.
Yeah.
If there was nothing else that he taught me, it's like you don't have to own someone's heart and soul. It's wrong.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's what I would do.
Yeah. Well, I kind of feel like there are people kind of doing that now. It's just not in the mainstream label
Right.
model. Like David Macias, I think does a
Yeah, I
really
was going
great
to say
job.
30 Tigers is a
Yeah.
great example.
Yeah. Yeah. Macias is great. And then, I also kind of feel like, things that Mercuritis is doing, who's been on the show, and, in publishing is really like a publisher who actually wants to pay you for your catalog.
Imagine that.
You know, I mean, those things are here. It's just that when someone does something different, people kind of look at it sideways and gonna go, "Oh, that'll never work." Well,
Mhm.
guess what? A lot of things haven't worked, but we do them anyway.
But we
You
do them anyway,
Anyway,
over and
and
over
over.
again.
Yeah, yeah. No, man, I completely agree with you. I think, having representation really, really matters. I think having representation with influence matters even more. And so if you have people on your team, like this thing that would maybe never happen in the music business, but I hope it does, is that there's this thing called the Rooney Rule in the NFL, which
Mhm.
is that if you're going to go hire someone or hire a coach, the NFL is what, 80% black or
Mhm.
people of color. And then for a long time, the coaches were not that. And
Mhm.
so Art Rooney instituted this, hey, DJ, Chiefs, go Bills, um, um, you know, this rule where if you're going to hire for head coaches, you needed to talk to a minority, like through the interview process, legitimately, So, um, and it changed the way people were hired. And there's still like holes and blind spots and still, but it was a requirement. So, hey, Brian, go Steelers. Um, yeah. So it's interesting to me that because we have some of these conversations, like with my friend Wes Davenport, for example, and we talk about how kids of color want to get involved in the industry here in Nashville, and there isn't necessarily a pathway for them to do that because they come from experiences and institutions that aren't necessarily, in line with access to like access is everything. If you don't have access, then it's really problematic, right? So,
Mhm.
and how do you get access? You get access when your team represents the people who want to have access. I think that's really, really important. um
100%.
yeah, yeah. So what's next, girl? What's next? What's coming? Not that you haven't been
Um,
busy.
well, right now I got to take my 10-year-old just texted me and was like, "When are we going to the library?"
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I have to go to the library
Okay,
after this.
yeah.
No,
That
I'm
rock and roll lifestyle right there.
yeah, baby, listen, we rock and we roll and we move over here. It's drug, sex, and rock and roll all day. Um,
And library books,
and
apparently.
library books,
Thank you, Dolly Parton.
toilets, things of that nature. Um, no, I'm working on a new record right now. Um, taking my time with it
Yeah,
because I want it to be good. And we're playing a lot. We just got off tour with Kingfish and that was
yeah,
amazing. And so now we're about to just we're doing some spot dates and doing some things. And is it the new record straight country? It is a country Americana record. Like there's going to be a mixture. Some of it is traditional and then some of it is more mm, how would I describe it? More on the Americana side. Like it's got some other elements to it. Like there are some gospel elements to some of the songs, and some and that singer songwritery more so than country, but
sure.
it's like a mixture. And yes, I am playing during Americana Fest. I am one of the
Yeah.
official showcases. I'm
Yes,
very
you are.
excited. Bringing the band. We're gonna have a good time. I don't know my exact date yet. I won't know that for a few months, but as soon as I do, I'll put it on the socials. But I'm I'm just so we're also working on the artist fund,
Yeah.
which the Color Me Country Artist Grant Fund. And I just got my 501c3 status, and so I will be administering the
Nice.
fund soon, and starting the Color Me Country Foundation,
Yeah,
which will do some of the things like what Marina was talking about
yeah,
schools and that sort of thing. I'm very excited about some of the plans that I'm working on there, and trying to take 6 artists to Europe in August for the Long Road Festival.
Yeah.
And we are still raising funds because I wanted that to be 100% taken care of. I didn't want them to come out of pocket for anything.
Yeah.
So we are in the process of raising $40,000. So if you would like to give to that, if you go to colormecountry.com, and there's a page where you can make a donation, and it would be much appreciated.
Tom, can you find
Otherwise,
the link for that and put that in the
yeah,
chat?
here, let me do that while we're talking. Otherwise, I'm raising babies and making lasagnas and and
Those
buying.
are underrated tasks, I must say.
What'd you say?
They're underrated tasks.
Yes,
Yes.
very much so.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, oh, dinner tonight, because I have to go to the library. It's probably gonna be around 6:30. So, and we're having vegan lasagna tonight, Corey.
Yeah. Corey's gonna drive from here to your house is what's gonna happen.
Come through,
That's
come to Durham.
Corey's gonna eat. Because I know Corey,
That's
he
big.
gonna eat. Yeah.
That's why it's a big casserole, because like my children eat like linebackers.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well,
Charles, this was so good to talk to you.
it was so good to talk to you. I should mention that Reecey's gonna be part of the Black Opry Tour.
Yes.
And we've already mentioned that she's going to be part of Americana Fest. I think you're doing Mountain Stage uh,
I'm doing
this
Mountain
weekend,
Stage
next weekend,
next weekend, next
next
Friday.
weekend. Yeah, yeah. And a whole bunch of, she's probably coming to a venue near you. So, so go check out Reecey. I appreciate the time. I appreciate all the baby advice. Because Miss Serena is definitely the beneficiary of some of the conversations we've had. So
Oh yeah, no, Serena is beautiful. And Ted actually just dropped a really great. This is the 60th anniversary. Yes, we did an episode actually about that album. It was here,
nice. Good job, Ted.
but also in the area of civil rights. Is it thought that influence is still felt today? I think that, so we talked about this on the episode, and if you go back, I talked to a gentleman who is writing the book on that album right now, Modern Sounds in Country and Western. And do I think that it still has influence? I absolutely do. I think Ray Charles is directly responsible for Charlie Pride.
Yeah.
I think there would not be a Charlie Pride had that record not been as successful as it was. I don't mean responsible for the person, like the talent and all that. That's Charlie's. But I do think that Nashville's antennas went up when they realized, number one, that a Black man could make a country record and have it be successful, and then number two, how successful it was, and that there was an American public, both Black and white, that were interested in hearing country music from a person of color. And so, yes, without that record, there would be no Charlie Pride, because without no Charlie Pride, there would be no Linda Martell. And Linda Martell is the reason why I'm here,
Yeah.
and is also the namesake of my radio show.
Yeah.
So that record is, and that's a very oversimplification of like what that record did. But I think the way that you heard country music produced after that record is a direct result of the success of that record. So like he's responsible for like the golden, what people call the golden age of country music. A lot of that sound came from Modern Sounds of Country and Western. So
I
yeah,
completely
it's a
agree. Yeah. When I was growing up in Malaysia, Ray Charles was directly responsible for me going to go listen to Hank Williams, and country to me became kind of a global thing at that point.
Yep.
Because Ray Charles was a global act, as much as he maybe didn't get the attention he deserved here, like radio stations all over the world played him. And if you were the BBC was hitting that record really hard. And, so, I mean, everything comes from somewhere. And
Yeah.
so, right. And so for me, listening to Ray Charles sing that record was completely life-changing for me in terms of
Mhm.
discovering country music, you know. So
Yeah. It was like you just said, and that's the most important thing. It was a gateway to country music at large. And I think that if executives were to look at it like that,
yeah,
like Breland, Jimmy, Leah Turner,
yeah,
Tristan Merez, Frank Ray, Cat and
yeah,
Alex, Charlie Lowry, all these different people of different ethnicities and different backgrounds can be your gateway.
yeah,
You were wondering how you can get certain audiences.
yeah,
Here you
yeah,
go.
yeah. My friend, thank you for your time. It's
Same.
lovely to chat with you.
Same.
I hope I get to see you the next time you're in town.
Next time, I know I've been cussed out by everybody. I promise y'all. Like when I come to town, it's only I have to get in and get out because I have to
Sure.
because I'm on a leash. So
Yeah, 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 I
I
get it.
got people watching me. So little
Yeah,
people. So
yeah,
but I promise next time coffee we're having it and perhaps even more like a meal. And
yes.
Tom, you have fun at Coachella.
The
Thank you.
hippest guy,
Thank you.
Tim
You
the hipster.
wear your feathers and like your beating. Like you need
Oh, I want photos now.
You don't want to see what I'm wearing below this shirt. I'm not going to stand up. Hey guys, I just want to thank you both for being just badass rock stars. Charles, you know you're one of my heroes. You always have been, and today
You're very
you
kind to me.
delivered the goods as I knew you would. And Reecey, wow, you're an inspiration, plain and simple. And I promised the audience at the outset they would leave today more inspired than they arrived, and you have delivered the goods. So please keep doing what you're doing and keep elevating all these other stars of tomorrow that very few of us get to hear of unless someone like you shines a light on them. So please keep doing it. You're doing a great job.
Thank you. I
And
appreciate that. Thank you for having me. This is a wonderful platform you created. Thank you.
well, appreciate that. We look forward to seeing you at Americana Fest in September. To the audience, thank you for your continued patronage here. We will be back here next week at the normal time of 1 o'clock Central Time. But thank you for indulging me a little bit later today. Everyone stay safe, get a shot if you haven't gotten one, and be nice to each other.
Yes.
Love to Brian, Reecey.
I will. You tell Serena and your beautiful, beautiful wife that I said hey.
I will. All right. Take
See you,
care.
Bye,
folks.
y'all.
Bye-bye.